All right, it's 6:30, so we'll get this meeting called to order. First item on the agenda is disclosure of pecuniary interest. So if any member of council does have a pecuniary interest, I would ask you to disclose that in writing to the clerk. Tonight is a special council meeting that will deal with one singular issue. I'm sure everyone who's here tonight knows exactly what that issue is. So for the sake of clarification, a special meeting works a little bit differently than a regular council meeting, so we don't have some of the other formalities that typically take place, such as question period. We sort of get right in and deal with the one issue that we're here to address, and then quickly adjourn the meeting and move on. So before we get into the actual business of the meeting, I just wanted to take a couple of minutes, if you'll indulge me, just to offer my thanks and appreciation to a few people and a few groups of people. I'm sure, as all of you know, this has been a long and difficult process for everybody involved, not the least of which are officers. It's also been very difficult, I think, on the seven of us who are sitting up here and ultimately are called upon to make a difficult decision tonight. And unfortunately, as is the case with any emotionally charged issue like this, it does have the capacity, and I think we've seen this in some other communities, it has the capacity to really create some deep divisions. Fortunately, although we've had a spirited debate and people have voiced strong opinions on both sides of the issue, I'm pretty confident in saying that regardless of the vote tonight, I think this community is going to move ahead in a strong position, and it will be unified and confident in our next steps. So I'd like to thank my council colleagues for your diligence through this process. There's been an awful lot of reading material, and I know a lot of hours spent when we could have been doing other things, poring over detailed reports and trying to form the best decisions that we could make. So thank you for taking the time that this important decision demanded. And I'm also proud for the support that you've given in making sure that this process has been as open and transparent as we could possibly make it. I mean, all of our deliberations have been done in the full light of day, and I think that's something that's important to note, and probably something that's unique amongst other communities that have gone through this process. I'd also like to thank our staff team here. This has consumed an inordinate amount of time, and I do appreciate, and I think I speak for the seven of us up here. I think we all appreciate the level of detail and the real, confident direction and advice that you've given when you've been asked for it. Not the least of which, I want to thank our police chief, Chief Moore, as well as every single member of the Shelburne Police Service. As I said, this has been a long and drawn-out process, but I think at the end of the day, we can all probably recognize that it's had significant value. So thank you for your patience, and thank you for the tremendous professionalism that each and every one of you have exhibited throughout this process. And finally, I'd like to thank the public. As I said, we've had some spirited discussions, and just by the very nature of this issue, not everybody is going to agree. But through it all, through all of the debate and deliberation, I think everybody, without exception, has conducted themselves with a high degree of decorum and respect, both for each other and for the process. And for that, I personally thank everybody who's been involved and taken an active role in this. So with that, I've been handed two motions here tonight that have been moved and seconded. So what we will do is I'll read the first one, get it on the floor, give the mover and the seconder an opportunity to speak to it, and then open it up to any other member of council who wishes to speak to the motion. We'll then vote. I believe it will be a recorded vote, which means it will happen by roll call. So each individual councillor will be called upon to vote yes or no on the motion. So for those of you who are here watching, please listen carefully to the details of the motion, and then we'll have a discussion. So the first motion is moved by Councillor Bonato, seconded by Councillor Wagner, and it reads as follows. Be it resolved that the town of Shelburne advise the Ontario Provincial Police by July 15th, 2019, that their contract policing proposal dated January 14th, 2019 to provide policing services to the town of Shelburne is not accepted. So Councillor Bonato, would you like to speak to your motion?
You want my reasons?
Whatever you want to say.
Okay.
Just don't keep us here all night.
I can't read the 5 pages I wrote?
No.
Summary?
Yes.
Well, my reasoning behind moving that motion basically is when I campaigned, that's what I campaigned on, was keeping the Shelburne police. The number of people who have spoken to me in favor of keeping the police has outweighed considerably the number who have spoken to me about going OPP. I wasn't satisfied with the consultant's report on the level of service. We have a tremendous, in my mind, differential in level of service between what Shelburne Police Service currently provides and what I understood. You know, I was told basic OPP would provide the basic policing service. Geographical knowledge was the other reason I went for that motion. I believe that we will lose our police officers within a few years. They'll have an opportunity for better pay and better jobs with the OPP. Why would they stay in town? They'll move on. And we've already lost our hospital. And now if we lose our police force, what is it that makes a small town a small town? It's simply the things that we're here, that we enjoy, and our Shelburne Police Force is one of those things that is very good for the town. So those were my basic reasons for going over and moving that motion.
Thank you. Councillor Wagner, you second the motion?
I have to agree with Councillor Bonato. I guess one of the questions I had asked myself during this whole process was, is it better to lease our police force or to own our police force? So those were questions, you know, that were very important to me. I feel that we are a town that is growing, and with that growth, we need to make sure we provide essential services. Of course, police services are essential, and they provide us with security. So, with that said, I definitely agree with, like I said, with what Councillor Bonato said, and I know why I was elected. I know who elected me, and I'm here to speak for those people, and I intend to do so.
Thank you. Any other member of council? Councillor Buffett.
Yes, I wanted to begin by stating that my decision tonight to support that motion is based on 2 important factors. The first is relating to financial impacts to our bottom line as a municipality and the impact that this decision could have on our future debt, because we've heard a lot about debt and about all the things that we have to deal with in the future relating to a number of issues. And the second most important consideration was listening to our residents' needs. So I'll start by saying that our new debt obligations that we have and will have to pay for in the future, be it money for policing, money for all of the other things that we have to pay for as a result of growth, will impact on our budget and on the cost to taxpayers, especially in the, more particularly in the area of wastewater services over the next few years, which may not seem like it has any direct bearing on this decision, but in actual fact it does, because we've talked about the issues related to financing. So recently in June, AMO sent out a summary of Bill 108 to all municipalities, and it highlighted several important amendments that will positively affect our financial position. So I would like to read it as it's stated under the heading of development charges. On a positive note, municipal governments may now charge the full capital cost of waste diversion services as a development charge. So So given this major change, what this will mean is that unlike what we would currently be collecting for our existing DCs, this will allow us to add significantly more capital to help offset these future debts. And with all the new homes coming in the next few years, this will have a great bearing on changing some of that. So I have 2 questions for the CEO. First one being, since we will be renegotiating our development charges very soon, with changes starting in the new year, have we considered the positive impact of this change on our projected debt outlined in our previous reports related to this, since it relates to the majority of our capital expenditures for wastewater services?
Through the mayor, yes. We had looked at the future development charges from the 2 existing developments that are in play. What we haven't considered are the lands that are potentially developable in the west end that are not within the urban boundary. The 5-year development charges study becomes renewed in May of 2020. So the current developments that are scheduled are incorporated in the existing DC plan. What also needs to be recognized is that development charges that we're currently collecting from the existing developments that are now scheduled are paying for the infrastructure upgrades on the waste treatment plant that were debt related in the past. So those monies are all not going towards growth. They are paying for past debt, which was allocated for that. We'll certainly, in terms of the wastewater treatment plant expansion through the EA, be providing council with any potential adjustments to the DC schedule for future developments where the development charge cost can be adjusted upward, but it has to be rationalized. Development charges can only pay for growth. And I know this is a long answer, but I think it's important, that the cost of the wastewater treatment plant, which is estimated to be between $12 and $15 million, the only DCs that we can utilize for that project are those that justify growth. There are unfortunately many elements of that infrastructure upgrade that are due to maintenance and wear and tear, and those are going to be borne by the existing taxpayer, and development charges are not applicable. So we have estimated that of the $12 to $15 million on that particular project, about $11 million needs to be borrowed. So we'll certainly go back, and when we have the new development charges study underway, we can look at whether we can minimize or reduce the $11 million that we're estimating that we borrow. But until we get into the nuts and bolts of that and also estimate future development, we're staying, we believe that our estimates are quite good at this time.
Okay, so the other area was looking at the transition costs for the severance payments and OPP startup costs in the range of about $3 million to transition to the OPP versus the cost of expanding our existing police station, which is also $3 million. So really one offsets the other in terms of costing there. Then over the first 3 years, the cost for the OPP will be significantly higher in their operating expenses than our current Shelburne Police. And yet further to this, the future cost for the OPP after this time cannot be guaranteed, as was confirmed by the consultant over and over during our review process. And lastly, one other additional consideration not relating to cost was the importance to residents of having a local Shelburne Police Station in town, providing them with peace of mind and giving them the sense that this was acting also as a deterrent to potential crime in the community. And this is something that you cannot put a price on. So that basically, looking at that and looking at our town surveys where we reached out to residents and asked them a number of questions related to their willingness to pay for this extra cost to keep our Shelburne Police. The majority of taxpayers checked off amounts that they were willing to add to their bill that were worth noting that most of these options that they chose were well above what the actual cost per household will actually be. So in conclusion, that is why I'm supporting keeping our Shelburne Police.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor Anderson.
Thank you. I'll keep my comments brief. I received a number of text messages and emails from many of you, many of the residents here in town. And I must say that the majority of those messages, and I'm sure many of us around the table could attest to it, were very positive in favor of the Shelburne Police. In fact, I just received a text message just before I got to this table, again stipulating the favor for our local police. What is interesting is that and I think all of us understand this, we live in a climate where municipalities are asked to do more with less. And there's always the talk about fiscal responsibility and making sure we're respecting the taxpayer's dollar, and I'm sure you've heard that many times before. And so there's always a temptation to be swayed by numbers and the potential savings that have been projected, and you guys have heard the numbers, I don't need to get into that. But I'll say in conclusion that in life you quickly learn there are certain things that you just can't put a price tag on, and that is safety, one's family, and certainly the level of service that the Shelburne Police have provided under the leadership of Chief Moore. So with that, I also support the motion in favor of keeping the Shelburne Police.
Councilor Fegan?
As we all know, it's been a very long and grueling process, and I can honestly say that I don't think there's anybody at this table that is taking this matter lightly. All through our campaign trail, we have always stated that, in fact, I believe everyone at this table stated that we will do everything in our power to keep the Shelburne Police. However, we also have a responsibility to be fiscally responsible, hence why we've had to go through this exercise to find out exactly where we stand. Personally, we've gone through numbers, we've seen all kinds of issues where budgets are not as happy as we may like them to be. That said, through the whole exercise, the one question that kept coming up was, can the OPP provide us the same service that we get with the SPD? I have to be completely honest and answer that if the OPP were to take over, absolutely they could provide the same service. However, I don't believe that they can provide that same service for their base level of service. The question that I kept asking through the consultant when the OPP presented their case and everything else, same question that I always ask was, what is going to be the cost of the enhancements that we need to maintain the level that we have? The answer was always, I'll have to get back to you. Nobody has ever given me a response as to what is the actual cost for the enhancements going to be. It would be fiscally irresponsible for me to support an option that doesn't let me know what that cost is. For me personally, that is the reason why I support keeping our SPD.
And Councillor Holt?
So again, first and foremost, I appreciate all the individuals who put forth the time to compile all the data that brought me to my decision tonight. So this process for me was never about which service was better, but about who could provide the coverage that this growing town needs both now and in the future. We must always look at what is best for our future investments, and thus I shall be supporting keeping our Shelburne Police services.
Thank you. So I guess I get around to it. All right, so for my part, just a couple of thoughts to hopefully shed some light on my calculus throughout this process. More than one person has acknowledged, and I do appreciate that they understand that regardless of what decision council makes tonight, the odds are that a good chunk of our community is going to walk away unhappy, and I think that's been borne out. Even though most of the comments we've received probably have weighted in favor of keeping Shelburne Police as opposed to making a move to the OPP. There have been a lot of compelling arguments made on both sides. And simply to summarize the two streams of argument, on one side, there's a large portion of our population who feels as though the level and quality of service that we've come to know and appreciate from Shelburne Police Service may not be what we could expect from the OPP. And as a result, we should stay, in the safe harbors of what we know. On the flip side, I've been told more than once that to make a decision other than move to the OPP would be tantamount to fiscal mismanagement or malpractice, given the degree of savings that have been projected. To be honest with you, and I don't think perhaps anybody other than the seven of us sitting in these seats tonight who are charged with the duty of actually putting our name to a vote, can fully appreciate the fact that an issue like this is never as black and white as it may appear on its surface. And there's always nuances, there's always complications, there's good points raised on both sides of the debate. And what I have found more often than not is the most reasonable, the most sensible solution tends to be the one that can garner consensus. And usually that's a path or a solution that does not rely entirely on one side of an argument or the other, but tends to draw on the best parts of both arguments. So if we're able to thread that needle, and by the time we're through with the two motions tonight, I hope that we can do that. I hope that this council can set a course for our community that, number one, will ensure that we're protecting the level and quality of service that people expect, but secondarily, that we'll do that in a way that honors our obligations as trustees of public funds to conduct the town's business in a fiscally responsible way. So I as well will be supporting Councillor Bonato's motion. So with that, I'll read the motion again. And Walter, do you want to record the vote?
Sure.
Okay. So just for clarity, the motion again was moved by Councillor Bonato, seconded by Councillor Wagner. Be it resolved that the town of Shelburne advise the Ontario Provincial Police by July 15th, 2019, that their contract policing proposal dated January 14th, 2019 to provide policing services to the town of Shelburne is not accepted.
Good. It may seem like a formality, but we have to go through the roll call here and count the votes. So Jennifer, our clerk, will do that.
You've requested a recorded vote.
Councillor Bonato did, yeah.
So when I call your name, please indicate yes or no. Councillor Bernardo.
Yes.
Councillor Buffett.
Yes.
Councillor Fegan.
Yes.
Councillor Hall.
Yes.
Councillor Webner.
Yes.
Mayor Mills.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Anderson.
Yes.
Okay, motion's carried. The second motion that we have is moved by Councillor Hall and seconded by Councillor Bonato, and it reads as follows. Be it resolved that Council requests that the Shelburne Police Services Board complete a comprehensive service delivery review of the Shelburne Police Service prior to and as a condition of the town of Shelburne committing any capital investment towards the building and space needs for the Shelburne Police Service. And be it further resolved that the service delivery review should consider needs-based staffing projections as well as the possible expanded use of technology and other innovative practices to minimize physical building space requirements. Councillor Hall, do you want to speak to that?
So again, obviously this process has brought forward a variety of items that need further review and as such a deeper dive. As the motion refers to, we do need to have a true understanding of what those space needs are, and thus ultimately what that building expansion would look like. Also, we need to look at how we can move forward in the future utilizing newer technologies as well as methods. And then finally, again, we need to validate our future staffing needs. So therefore, I've put forth this motion as we move towards that future.
Thank you. Councilor Bernardo, second.
The reason I seconded the motion was because when we had a tour of the OPP facilities, we noticed the amount of space that their officers did not use because of the technology that they had in their vehicles and their ability to use that technology in the vehicles. And I felt that, again, this is something that is more productive, having our officers out doing their duty and being able to do it without not necessarily always having to run back to a physical space or building.
Any other member of council want to speak to the motion before I call the vote? No? Okay. I'll ask for a recorded vote on this as well, please.
So a recorded vote has been requested. When I call your name, please indicate yes or no. Mayor Mills,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Anderson,
Yes.
Councilor Bernardo,
Yes.
Councilor Buffett,
Yes. Excuse me, yes?
Councilor Feeding,
Yes.
Councilor Hall,
Yes.
Councilor Whitman.
Yes.
Motion's carried.
All right, just 2 items of housekeeping. The next is a bylaw that we pass at the end of every council meeting, and this just confirms the proceedings that have just taken place. It reads as follows. Be it resolved that leave be given for the reading and enacting of bylaw number 43-2019, being a bylaw to confirm certain proceedings of the Council of the Corporation of the Town of Shelburne for its special council meeting held July 10th, 2019. The mover and seconder for that. Moved by Councilor Fegan, seconded by Councilor Wegner. All in favor? Motion is carried. And finally, be it resolved that we now adjourn to meet at the call of the mayor. Moved by Councilor Hall, seconded by Councilor Buffett. All in favor? Carried. Thank you, folks.